Hello, the Right to Inspired show. This is episode 3, and I'm delighted to be speaking to Astrid. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that's one way to pronounce it. That's good.
Yeah, probably the wrong one, to be honest with you. But how do you pronounce it?
Really depends which language you're using.
Oh, right,
You
okay.
see, my dad is German, so he says Astrid.
Okay.
My mother is of English speaking as first language, but
Okay.
she's got different heritage. She says Astrid. I live in Sweden where I'm Astrid, so it's all good.
Okay.
As long as no one calls me Ingrid, it's fine.
Okay.
Because that happens.
I'd try not to do that. As I say, massive welcome. I'm really looking forward to this. And as I say, what I will do straight away is to go straight into it. And just if you'd like to say a little bit about yourself, you know, what you're doing as an author, etc., and then we'll kick in with that.
Right. Well, I think I should probably start at the beginning because
Yeah.
that's the interesting part. So I was 12 when I had that idea, the spark. I sat down, I started writing, and I didn't stop. And all through high school, I wrote. That was what I did. I used to be this figure with a large folder under one arm and a pen in the hand. I never went anywhere without my folder. And as the years went by, I kind of got stuck with this idea that this wasn't a reasonable dream to go after. So in my 20s, I actually stopped writing completely. I studied something reasonable that would get me a job. Did an undergraduate in psychology and totally hated the subject. Thankfully, I'd also decided that, you know, I love English, I love reading. If I don't at least do something in that line, you know, studying real things is going to stop me being able to read. So I took English literature and I ended up taking social anthropology. And that turned out to be my second passion.
Okay.
So I now have a master's in social anthropology with a focus on identity. And have been looking at migration issues for a long time. And then somewhere along the line, I was at home rooting through my stuff, needing to decide on what goes and what stays and what my parents need to keep for me. And so I found a manuscript written out by hand in blue and black ink.
Wow.
And I went, you know, well, there's no purpose keeping this manuscript written by hand. I mean, we live in a digital era. I need this on a computer. So I went ahead and I typed it out. This was just after I'd finished my master's and was waiting for the go-ahead to actually complete that phase in my life. So I had some time. And I sat down and I did it. And then I started, you know, kind of getting up the courage to ask people what they thought about my book. And everyone kept telling me, this is amazing, you need to publish, this is great, please do it. And I kept going, nah, no one's going to want to read my book. And then some shifts started happening, and I actually took a course, a life coaching course. And it hit me just over a year ago that if I don't do this now, I'm probably never going to do it. And in March of 2019, I got my act into gear and I started working on it. And in May, so it's a year now, I published my first book. Followed it up with a sequel, which essentially I took what I'd originally written and turned it into 2 novels.
Okay.
And at the same time, I started writing again. So I published 3 books last year.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Completed, yeah, exactly. I'm totally bowled over. Completed NaNoWriMo in November and now have a next book that's coming up now. Won 2 Literary Classics Awards for my debut novel.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you. And this from me with the, nah, no one's ever going to want to read my book and it's not worth going after this. So the first thing first, don't put yourself down. Don't listen to the negative self-talk and go for it.
Exactly. And it's just amazing. Just one small thing happened and it just sparked everything else and it just put you back on that track.
Absolutely.
Life can have an amazing sort of effect sometimes on you. But I say, well done. You know, four novels is absolutely amazing, and having sort of like awards for that as well is, well, that's awesome in itself. So, you know, as you say, you know, it's inspiration in itself if people don't feel that they can do it. Well, look what you can do. You know, it's just your own negative mind talk stopping you. But as I say, the main thing I'd like to talk to you about is obviously what's your biggest challenge at the moment? And obviously we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but what's your biggest challenge that you're facing at the moment as an author?
Well, there's a combination of things. One of them is trying to do too much and spreading myself too thin.
Yeah.
So I got accepted to participate in a box set with another fairy tale retelling. So the books that I've published are all retellings of lesser known fairy tales. So I've picked a fourth one, another one. Amazing project. I'm totally enjoying it. But then I'm also on an anthology with a short story that I've half written, having great fun with that one too, using inspiration from Swedish children's songs, actually, which is great fun. I'm having a lot of fun with them. And then the big project that I kind of started last year, and I'm still editing now and is in the production process, which is a novel that's a first in a trilogy and a set of 10 novellas, of which I've written 4.
So there's got a bit going on at the moment.
And then, I mean, I have a day job. I have 2 children aged 5 and 20 months. A household to keep running and a wonderful husband who makes it all work out. So that is the main issue. Then obviously finances is a huge issue because I struggle to get my stuff to an editor just because there is no spare cash.
Okay, so in a nutshell, for what you're saying is that it's being clear about what you need to do. Obviously, you've got novellas and all that type of stuff that you need to do, and obviously financial sort of side of things as well. I can totally relate to most of that. We, especially as an author, we just want to go out there and do this, we do that, and it end up just being too much of a thing. Something
Absolutely.
that I will say. Yeah, sorry.
And then, you know, continuing to promote my existing stuff. So I'm on the verge of launching a YouTube series about everything that is in my original duology, because it's my experience as a South African German with the change from over apartheid. So there's lots of questions of all the things, all the topics that I had to deal with as a child came through in my books. And there's lots of stuff there, and I know that teachers might appreciate that, but obviously I have to tell them that. So then I sit with this project on the side as well. So never a dull moment.
No, what I would say, and this is what I'm trying to do, as I say, I want to get my website properly done. I've done it, and about 2 years ago, and it was rubbish. So I've just shelved it, and now I'm sort of going back through it again. I want to get that done. I want to get 5 or 6 books written in the next sort of like couple of months. I want to get this podcast up and running and helping more people. I want to grow my group. You know, just doing there's loads. You know, what I would just say is look in your heart and just say, what's the most important thing to me at the moment? What do I need to focus on?
Yeah.
And then make a decision from that, because there was a lot there, and I'm sure that you'd want to do, if you really, you know, was Supergirl, you'd be able to go around and do the whole thing, you know, in a couple of months, but that's not realistic. And just sort of like going, okay, I want to do that. That is going to happen, but maybe push that back a few months. So that's what I would personally do.
Yeah.
An additional thing to that, and this is aside from sort of like what I usually talk about, when you're doing your YouTube, perhaps look at TikTok as an option for you. You know, 15, 17 seconds is the best time. You can do so up to a minute on them as well, but the organic reach is huge. If you get it right, and just take time, but if you get it right, you don't have to pay money. It's just a case of putting it out there, you know, short things. Loads of kids even upwards at the moment, up Gen X, right up the top, even old people like me are on there as well. So there is a massive opportunity there to, as long as you get the right keywords and stuff to grow it. So that may be something you could look at to help you into YouTube, because you can actually set your profile up with YouTube on there too. So that would be a great opportunity to bring them in as well as on there. That's just a point really for me on that. And as far as finance is concerned, and something that I say in the group, and and again, it's not an easy thing, especially what we're going through at the moment. There's millions of people losing their jobs, and it's difficult to sort of like see where the next sort of like pennies are coming from. But what I would recommend you perhaps do, and again, this is going to be additional work, so just think about whether this is going to work for you or not. But look at the skills you've got and what can I do to raise funds. And if you looked on it, there's absolutely loads and loads of places out there at the moment where you can earn additional money. However, some of it is very inefficient. So there's quizzes and stuff that you can do. I don't recommend doing them, because the amount of hours and time you put in them, the money back from it isn't worth your time. So it's basically valuing that. So there's Upwork where you can perhaps do some copywriting skills and stuff like that. There is that type of stuff that I personally look into. I have got some stuff in Successful Writers Club as well group. If you want to talk a bit more about that, I'm more than happy to do that. But that's personally what I would start looking at. But again, it's the crux of it is the value of what you value. So if it's sort of like I can get $40-50 from this, then it probably is valuable. But if it's sort of like I'm going to do 2 or 3 hours worth of work and it's going to get me like $5, that isn't worth it. It's better to focus on your books and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'll tell you the one solution that came to me.
Yeah.
And that's actually to put my books out on pre-order through a crowdfund.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And I've actually reached 93%. Okay, so it is an all or nothing venture. I have just under a month. I have 3 weeks left to make my last 7%. And so ebook copy of the novel called The Apprentice Storyteller is at $5, and then it goes up in increments, and you can get the whole set of the novellas and the novel, all the way up to paperback and signed copies. And so there's always a solution to every problem. That I do believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just have to find our way through it and make it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is also that this particular project is one of those ones of those coincidences that aren't coincidences when you look back, because it's an idea that came to me years and years ago, and I tried to write it, struggled with it, and there was something missing. And I kept shelving it, and I kept coming back to it, and I kept shelving it. And one of the main themes in it was a series of dreams I had that stuck with me, like I lived them. They were lived experiences, not just dreams. And they were kind of these short stories I built into the tale that were like what the storyteller is telling other people, telling their audience. And then last year with the life coaching, I actually ended up doing a course to become a transformational life coach. And I got hit by one of those universal bats of aha moments, this major epiphany, was that every single one of my dreams was one of the core principles of the course that I trained in.
Okay.
And then I decided, this isn't going to cut it as short stories. I need to go into each of the shorter stories in more detail, and that's why they have now evolved into novellas to accompany the main novel, which is all about transformation, because that was my missing link, was that it's not just about the apprentice learning how to tell stories and going on an adventure and having a lot of fun. It's also about the grumpy 50-something-year-old storyteller who's dissatisfied with her life, hates everything, who gets saddled with this apprentice she doesn't want, and learns that you can actually, you have the power to transform your life to how you want it. You don't have to accept the circumstances how they are. And then I'd written it, and then COVID-19 happened, and I went, hang on, people need this book.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my darndest to make sure it gets edited properly and be of the right quality to be able to go out there as soon as possible.
Fair enough. So another question I'd like to ask you is vision. So in 5 years' time, where do you want to be? So what do you want to, do you want to be a New York Times bestselling author? Let it loose, cut loose. Just go with your dreams. Tell me what your
definitely. The USA Today bestselling author is already in the pipeline. It's in the sights as one of the next goals. So New York Times is probably in a 5-year plan. Is a good goal. Definitely reaching people all over the world, because my biggest thing that was part of that grounding idea back when I was 12 was my issue with the fantasy genre being so white. And obviously things have changed since then, but there's still few and far between, and particularly African magic, you can count them off on your fingers, how many there are. And there's only one well-known one.
Okay.
And that's actually the big project that I started back when I was 12 that I haven't published yet. I'm not ready for it yet, but it's coming and definitely needs to be out there within the next 5 years.
But outside of your being your career, what impact do you want to have on yourself and on your family? After 5 years?
Well, I would like to be able to support my family as an author and a life coach, and not need to hustle on the side and have a day job. All of that. So yeah.
And how do you want to feel in the 5 years' time? Top of the world, that type of stuff. How do you want to feel?
Well, I could do with the sleep, which is starting to happen now, because the 20-month-old is starting to sleep. So once I get to be sleeping through the night every night, I might actually have the energy to do everything I want to do. But that's definitely it. Like, have the energy and the time to actually focus on the things that I really want to do and that I love doing, and not be stuck having to push those aside and constantly go, okay, that has to wait until after the kids go to bed, and then by 9:30, because now in Sweden it's light until 9 and they don't go to sleep. Not having to then after that go, oh gosh, I just don't have the energy for any of this now, and not be able to do the things that I love a lot of the time, just because I just don't have the energy anymore, because it's been a big day full of stress and panic stations at the office and God knows what else. The things that come up.
I can understand that. I can understand that. Is there, obviously, I'm sure that you could give an answer with this, but is there any opportunity you could do it earlier? Could do some of your writing in that early in the morning, or is that obviously with your 20-month-old and not complete no? Because I can relate, because I can't do it myself. But that's something that a lot of people do.
I am definitely more of a morning person. So yes, especially in a future when I no longer have a baby in the same room as me, that will definitely be on the cards. Right now we're shifting her 5 o'clock wake up to 6 o'clock. Okay. And then obviously that will phase into the 7 o'clock wake up and get up. So that means that then I can wake up at 6 o'clock and write for an hour.
Fair enough.
But not right now.
Have you tried voice typing? Is that something that you want to do, or you just prefer to actually?
I'm terrible at it. Oh, okay. I get confused. My mouth can't keep up with my brain. Well, my fingers are so used to it now because I typed out. I've been typing stories for so long, but then also all the university work was all typed, and so my writing is definitely a brain to paper achievement. I can't go through linguistically.
I can understand that. It works for some people. It doesn't for others. And I imagine you're the type of person who kind of edit it as you go along, as in, put the commas in and all that type of stuff. Whereas when you do voice type, it hasn't really got that sort of strength.
No, and I'm very pedantic. So yes.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
I'll think of a word and I'll go like, hang on, I used that word in a paragraph, and I'll pull up the thesaurus and look up a new word right then and there, and then carry on writing.
Oh wow, okay. Oh dear. You say, luckily I'll leave that. I'll do it to Pro Writing Aid and let me tell me what's wrong then. But yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah. Is there any other questions you'd like to ask me?
Well, I'd like to know a bit about your journey. How's it been for you?
Okay, well, I started, blimey, September 2016 when I started, and I hadn't written a word. I spent time planning it. I bought loads of books on, what it is. YouTube. So people like Jenna Marisi, Kim Chance, probably don't know them, but these are the type of people that I took a lot of information off. And then I just went out and going, right, okay, who is the best in the business? What can I learn? They were great, but I wanted to learn more. I wanted from different people. So people like Chandler Bolt, people like Joanna Penn, she was absolutely amazing. And I learned so much from her. And then I just started branching out even more. So people like Mark Dawson and Nick Stevenson, I just took every piece of information I could from them. And then in January, I started writing the book, and it was ready. And it was all my stress and my worry, because with my book, and again, a lot of people struggle with this anyway, but with my book, I had to go back through all my pain, because obviously I had to go through my armed robbery, the death of my brother, everything, all the pain that I'd had in my life, and I had to regurgitate that all up to write this book. And it went from sort of like, I can't write it. Why can't I write? Because I pretty much exhausted myself out. Everything was going wrong. To cut a long story short, got the book out, and I didn't edit it very well, so I had to go back and do that. But then in 2 years, I'd only done 2 books, and something clicked on the second book, and I went, something's not right here. I need to sit and get a process that works for me. And that's what I did, and I worked around it. And all of a sudden, I got 3 books done in 7 weeks, 6 books published in 8 months, and I just went bang, and I went for it. But I just soaked up a hell of a lot of information. I got a bit obsessed with it. And if I'm honest, I wasn't like you, where sort of like, when I was a kid, I wrote, and, I was quite creative with writing, but nobody said to me, you're really good at writing. Nobody told me that. And it's only when I only had an armed robbery, and I was listening to a podcast where a lady was talking about what sort of jobs HSPs and all that stuff can do. They said writing. I went, nah, writing, no. But it kept going back into her head, and that's when I went, right, okay, I'm going to start writing. And I want to do non-fiction, I want to do romance, I want to do absolutely shed loads. But my biggest thing is try and help other people, and that's what I get the biggest kick out of. I want to see my help, for them to go 10, 20 times better than what I'm ever doing, because that would be the biggest kick. It's not about me, and I think that because I'm so obsessed with the brain and how things work and lots of stuff, I feel that can be help other people. So that's my story. Had it been easy? No. Have I sacrificed a lot? Yeah. Has my wife been really supportive? Yeah, she has been amazing, if I'm honest. Lesser women would have gone, nah. This obsession of yours, I can't deal with it anymore. Fair play to her. She's stuck by me through a hell of a lot. And, and I respect her fully for that. And again, I'm lucky now. I've got a 15-year-old and I've got a 12-year-old. So I don't have the challenges you have, at 6 o'clock in the morning. Having said that, my son's got ADHD. So the thing that happened, if I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, straight away he'll be awake. And that's not fair on him, because then he's going to be exhausted, and he'll be overtired at night. He won't be able to go to sleep, and it'll actually be a compounding effect for the whole week. So I've had to find ways to do what I needed to do when I was at work. And that was it. And I got to the point, I used my anxiety. So I had an hour a day. That's it. I have an hour a day to write. If I don't do it, guess what? You ain't getting it done. So it meant my hour dinner break, and I'll shut the door at work. No, nobody's coming in. This is my time. Get lost. And that's what I did. So that's my story in a nutshell. But 8 books in now. Hopefully going to go and get my romance book done soon, which I'm really excited about. And then I just want to help people, my books suddenly branch out. And again, for me, and I don't know whether you believe in this, but for me, it's about upgrading myself too. You know, my books, I read about 40 books a year. My books, 40 books a year, and I learned so much about myself. And you know, each time my book needs to be considerably better than the one before. I was 16 when I stopped English. I am by no means a literary genius. You know, I still struggle to put the comma, I pronounce things wrong, lots of stuff. And I'm very fortunate that I've had some really good editors. I've just had to go, no, wrong, and got to, which is great. But again, that's you know, you've said about inspiration. You know, this for me as well. If someone sat there and go, nah, I can't write, I won't be able to do it, I'm not good enough. Crap. That's you telling yourself you're not good enough, because anybody can write. You know, the gates are open now. If you got the passion for it and you can go and do it, you will find people out there that believe in you and that will buy your book. It's finding those people. And you know, there's millions of people out there now that write books. But anyway, that's my story. Get on a bit. But yeah, that is my story.
Yeah, well, but this is the thing. It's, you know, there are some common themes. You know, definitely the helpful spouses is a really big one.
It is, yeah.
If you have the support system, you can get through it, no matter what it is that your passion is, and that's an important one.
Absolutely, she's been absolutely amazing, and so I'm very fortunate. Is there any more questions you'd like to ask me before we finish?
Not really, because I just love how you work with all of us. I love the Successful Writers Club, and everything that you do is just amazing. So thank you for being there for all us newbies, you know, and helping us out and making sure that we have these opportunities to meet up and to learn from each other.
Thank you. That means a lot.
But it's also, as you said, helping others is what's most important, and I definitely feel that resonates for me, because that's also what I want. That's what's always been a key element in all of my writing, has always been to share my experiences through fiction, to show others that, you know, whatever you're experiencing, you're not alone, and that, you know, we're all in a journey together, even if we don't necessarily know each other.
Yeah, I agree.
We can all learn from each other and help each other, and extending a helping hand is always there.
Yeah, it is. There's no competition. There's absolutely no competition, and people don't realise that. You know, as a you know, a reader, you don't go, okay, I'm just going to buy Astrid's book. I'm not going to buy the other books in a genre. I don't need to. People do. They buy the whole lot. So helping one person, you know, you're helping each other, and I've had that. You know, through all of it, for me, there's no competition. You know, I've got friends that are actually in the anxiety and all that sort of stuff genre as well, and we're great friends. You know, what's the problem? There isn't anything. You know, and overall, I do feel, and there is a few people that, you know, I won't mention here, but there is a few people that have got the negativity about it. But 99.99% of the people out there, extremely supportive, extremely helpful, and you know, we're very humble people, because as a writer, if you go to work, do you know what? Today I feel awful. I don't really want to do anything. You go to work, you do your job. It's a completely different story if you're a writer. If you're feeling awful, you ain't going to write.
No, precisely.
So, you know, you have to, and as well, you were talking about being a fiction author and, you know, bringing things up to inspire people. But we still have to we have to trudge into the darkest parts of our mind and our psyche to bring out and create these stories. That's exhausting. You know,
and the characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if you look at my very first novel that I published last year, the lead character, Elizabeth, is a combination of everything I hate about myself and everything I aspire to be.
Interesting.
And the antagonist is the worst of the worst hell that could possibly happen if everything went wrong for me. That's who she is.
That's interesting. So fighting that adversity. Okay, that's that.
Yeah. So it definitely, you know, well, the thing is, for me, I've never really had a problem with writer's block. So far, I've never had it. If I get stuck, I let go. It's just naturally been my response is, okay, I just need to shelve this for a bit, take a walk, go do some cross stitching, you know, something. And my subconscious works through it. And the next time I sit down to write, I might not actually write on that story. I might pick up a different project. But within weeks, whatever the block was just disappears, and it just keeps going, and I keep writing.
It's an amazing skill to have, though, isn't it? Because it's the belief, and I call it percolation, and it's basically if you've got, I've had it when I'm writing something. This chapter's not working for me. Something is fundamentally wrong with it. It's changing, and I just go, right, okay, that's not a problem. I write in there, needs such and such, and I'll put a bit of description in it, and I go, that chapter's getting shelved. I'm going to carry on with this. I'm going to give myself time. I'll make sure I'll have my phone available to me. So I'll have Evernote, and I'll be in the shower, I'll be driving, and boom, the answer comes from nowhere. And it can be weeks. But again, I used to, with the first couple of books, I really struggled with writer's block in the fact that, I was exhausted and I just physically could not write whatsoever, and everything was going wrong. Life was just completely awful. My dad was really ill, my car blew up, I was doing 14, 15 hours a day. I was completely physically and mentally exhausted through it. That's the only time that I've struggled. And again, I'm glad I had those experiences, because now I can understand what it's like for other people. And I always talk about Moneymaker, looking after this, because your mental health and how if you're not looking after your brain, so that's what you're eating, the structure of your day, your meditation, all that stuff. If you're not doing that as a writer, then you are not putting out the best that you can do. And that's something that I really do encourage people to do. But as I say, I don't want to go on one, because I'll be waffling on for the next 20 minutes, 2 hours.
Absolutely. But it's that, I like the way Neil Gaiman puts it. He calls it composting. That you take an idea and then you sit on it. And you allow it to compost in your mind. It's that. People say, you need to work through it and go without sleep. No, the best opportunity is to go to bed, set the intention it's going to be sorted out, and your brain, while you're sleeping, will file it and sort it out, come up with some sort of thing. We need to, as authors, need to have that more belief in ourselves that actually the problems will come, but they're also, the answers will also come to, be anything. Absolutely anything. No, this character's not really working for me. And experience you have, go, there you go. That's what I can use. And it's everything in life. And I say, I love what authors can do. Absolutely amazing. They work really, really hard. And I just think that sometimes we don't appreciate what we do on a daily basis and what we have to go through to achieve what we need to do. And I'll keep putting this quote out, but I still think it's an amazing one. 81% of Americans want to write a book. Only 1%, this is from the New York Times, they did a survey, only 1% actually write that book. 1% out of 81%, so people going, I've published a book, it's not doing very well, but you've already got in the lottery. You're already there. So you should be, whatever else is a bonus. Yes, it takes people a long time to become successful in what they want. So some people just say, look, I want to write a book, I want to publish it, I'm happy with that. Other people want, do you know what, I actually want to make some money out of this. That takes time, and there are so many millions of books out there. It's not that easy. No, it isn't. But there's also the insight that I've gained from the social anthropology side, which is that part of what makes us human and distinctly human is storytelling. Yeah. So it's a key essence of who we are as humans. Yeah. And that's why I personally believe that every one of us has at least one story in us. Yeah. A minimum of one. And that's what I love about the self-publishing options that are available now, is that you can actually do it. You don't have to worry about convincing some publishing house 30 times before Harry Potter comes out. It's
honestly, and a lot you used to have in the past as well. The traditional publishers say, no, that's not going to work for me. No, don't, no, and they would dictate what people. But now that's completely open. Chick lit come out. Sweet romance is another one that's come out a lot more. There was loads of different things for people that are willing to go for it. And it doesn't matter how small and niche the genre is, right? Yeah. You still have an opportunity to do well out of it, because there's 7 billion people out there.
Exactly, and I also find that, we get these comments that there's certain groups that don't read. And I honestly believe it's because they can't relate to what's out there.
Yep.
What's commercially available, because as I pointed out, when I was 12, I already noticed that the genre I loved because of the stories that it had didn't reflect anything about me, because it was white boys running around doing heroic deeds, battling dragons. And in my lived experience, I lived in a multicultural society with people of all hues. Why did elves, dwarves, everybody have to be white? It just didn't make sense to me. It didn't work for me.
Absolutely.
And so this is the thing. That's why for example, the Siblings Tale, which is that first duology I've published, I've drawn on Peruvian culture, because it's a retelling of a grim fairy tale. So I wanted the mountain setting because my dad is Bavarian, and that was kind of what Germany was to me, is the Alps. So, but then I was like, but I don't want it white. So I went, well, where else have I been with mountains where the people aren't white? And I'd been to Peru. So I drew on the Peruvian aesthetics a little bit, and I've kind of created in my world building, I've created a culture that's a fusion of the two. So,
that's amazing.
so it's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it as well. As I say, if there's any more questions you've got before we finish.
I'm good. Thank you, Chris. And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been welcome. Awesome talking to you.
Yeah, you too. I've really enjoyed it. It's been brilliant. And I'm sure that our viewers would enjoy it too. So thank you very much. And I shall speak to you soon.
Yes, I hope so too.